And when we first started, communication, quality, and timelines, that was the standard. I remember telling our clients, you give me 5 days, I'll have that job installed. Yvonne, if you told a client today, you can get a job installed in 5 days, how long would you keep that client? Not very long. Not very long. Today, if I order something, I usually expect it within a couple hours to be at my doorstep. Now, the standard changed.
Our guest today is Mark Wagner, who's been a competitor of mine, a mentor of mine, and a friend whose journey embodies what collaboration over competition really looks like.
If any vendor wants to go expand internationally, you'll need to have at least 8,000 to 10,000 doors in that market. You're not going to be able to survive. You only have one client. So you need to diversify. There's 3 powers that you need to have. You need to retain your customers, you need to retain your employees, you need to retain your installers. If you don't retain those, you won't get anywhere within this side. Why do I work it? I don't work to make money. What I'm working for is to get money so that I can make it to my daughter's dance recital on time. So I can make it to my grandson's t-ball game that's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's why I'm working, and that is men are that they might have joy.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Vendor Network. Today I've got a special guest and we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that is flooring. Inside the Vendor Network, we are here to shine a light on the people and the partnerships moving the SFR and dedicated rental community space forward. Remember, in our episode with Colleen Yeager with Quinn, Death of BTR, Life of DRC. We're gonna retire that acronym, Mark. Richard Ross has coined the term dedicated rental communities. We're gonna try. There's a swear jar. So if you say BTR on this episode, you got to send Quinn $1. So all right. So today I'm joined by someone who's been a competitor of mine, a mentor of mine, and a friend for sure. A leader whose journey embodies what collaboration over competition really looks like. So our guest today is Mark Wagner, CEO, co-founder of RM Interiors. He is the M in RM, better known as RMI Flooring. 2 brothers, Rick and Mark, started this organization. Actually, I think your brother kind of got started right before you, and then he kind of pulled you along. I've got another interview I just did with him recently at the North Carolina inaugural conference. So he tells a little bit of that story. So we'll match them up. We'll see if they line up.
Well, there's a good chance it won't.
There you go. That's right. Perception's reality. So, all right. So both of you started out as installers in Mesa, Arizona, and grew RMI into a multi-market flooring powerhouse, serving the single-family rental and build-to-rent industry nationwide. Mark isn't just a business owner, he's a builder of people, partnerships, and process. Under his leadership, RMI was named Contractor and Rehab Company of the Year at the IMN SFR Industry Leaders Awards, and introduced its nationally recognized RMX SKU program, which we'll talk a little bit about today and what that all means, creating a standardized approach to products and pricing that helps operators deliver fast turns, consistent quality, and strong NOI. So beyond the business, Mark's influence extends deep into the fabric of this industry. He and his brother also co-founded the NRHC Phoenix local chapter. Mark is also the co-chair of the National Trade Partnership Committee for the National Rental Home Council, and he's helping bridge owner-operators and vendor field teams to address some of the biggest shared challenges around timelines, quality, technology, and supply chain. What I admire the most about Mark is his heart for collaboration. He's someone I once competed with. Throughout my career has been a mentor and has now become a friend and partner in helping elevate our shower systems in this space. So it's truly been a pleasure working with you over the years. Welcome to the show, Mark Wagner.
Thank you. Can I share a funny story about competitor and the NRHC? But I think you'll like it because you guys taught me a lesson. You specifically taught me a lesson. So you make mention of mentor and competitor and the NRHC, and it just reminded me of this. And so I chuckled as you were talking. Rick and I co-founded the Arizona chapter for the National Rental Home Council. Reason being is because you, Preferred Brands, co-founded the North Carolina. As a matter of fact, you put the local chapter on the map. You agree with that?
I do agree with that.
Hey, so what happened along that line is I watched my North Carolina work just start to fall off the table. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And then I dive into it. I'm like, okay, well, I just got beat at a game. I don't like getting beat, but I got beat at a game and I got beat bad. It was almost like a Cardinals football game yesterday with, nurse tap. It was really bad. Anyways, I recognized, I was like, okay, what's going on here? The game changed. I need to know what it is and recognize that we need to be more involved with the owners. And you guys taught me that lesson. And so immediately, I went to Rick and said, Rick, we got to build a Phoenix chapter. So we started calling people and we put together about 110, 120 people before we had ever talked to Carla or Dave or anyone. And we said, hey, we got these people coming and this is what we're doing. Can you guys get here? Because we've got it set up. And then, so we set up a venue and then went through, and then Rick said, hey, I want to be the chair. So you can only have one person be a chair. So Rick took that. I said, well, I've got a bigger vision for the national side. I said that there isn't a vendor representation and we need to get a vendor representation. So along that line, I then jumped in and went up to Colleen, who was the chair of the board at the time, and said, hey, I think you should do this vendor council. This is what it should be. And she told me to write a charter for it and send it to her. So I immediately went home and Googled what's a charter because I had no clue what she meant, and got the idea and said, okay.
GPT was around. I mean, this is still a short couple years ago.
It just started. ChatGPT had just started. So I put it in. I think it was the first experience I had with ChatGPT. I put in my thoughts, said, write a charter. This is what I want. This is where it's going to go. It created one. It was like within 2 days after she told me to do one, I emailed her with it. She sent back and said, hey, that's a great charter. I like it. It makes sense. Okay, let's move forward. So that's how I got there. But the reason why I got where we are right now within the National Rental Home Council and in that domain with the Arizona chapter was because what you and your team taught us was we need to be more engaged. So hats off to you, back to another time where you taught me, you mentored me in a way that was like, okay, through competition. So I don't know. I just thought it was a funny story.
Well, thank you for that acknowledgement. My team and I did put a lot of effort into actually just helping at that time Amanda Blackman's vision come alive, right? And so in all transparency, we were all kind of sitting around one day and it was like, man, wouldn't it be great if we had local meetups or something local like the Multifamily Association, but only for SFR BTR, right? And so because we both know how successful Multifamily Association is and how we can go and participate in those environments because we're in a relationship business. And you've always been that. You've always been about relationship. It's just how do we keep our relationships going? And so to your point, sometimes we need a different lens on our business. And I think you're seeing that internally now at RM Interiors with some of the younger ones coming up. And we'll get to that in this conversation today. But that is exactly why this platform is existing and why I started this podcast was just to continue these conversations, create a voice for the vendor network, right? All of the vendors that make up this space who can get on here and truly in your heart, Mark, I was a subcontractor for you. So you mentored me in a lot of ways to teach me. Your team also mentored, whether it be Shannon or Candy. Those were all really, we worked under you to service. I think it was OfferPad or Open Door. We didn't even know necessarily who we're showing up for. We were showing up for you. You were our client. But you taught us speed. You taught us communication. Your team required that. Shannon would come in and sit with me and coach me and develop me. And so your approach to competition was always like, I'd rather be alongside of you doing it together versus we have someone come into this market and disrupt things in a way that actually just wouldn't have worked out well for our customer. It wasn't for always our own purpose, but like we get some knucklehead in here with a couple chucks in a truck and they undercut pricing, that could affect us in a way because the education isn't there around true supply and demand, long-term nurturing and developing our installer base. So you and I looked at the business in a lot of similar ways because you taught me that. And then a lot of those things and your team taught me that. So I appreciate you and I absolutely love the flooring industry. Someone told me early on, once you get in, you can't get out. And so there is really no getting out. I still talk about flooring a lot. People still lean on me for advice on their flooring. Now I get to work with not only you, but all my competitors that were in this space. And I think that's where we're called to do bigger things sometimes, right? So maybe my vision wasn't that I was going to leave Preferred one day. I probably never would have left Preferred. There was a bigger vision for me. And I think my calling is bigger than being the EVP at a flooring company. So now I get to work with your team on shower systems. And of course, we talk about flooring and a whole holistic package when we're doing needs analysis and discovery calls with clients together. So we have the same philosophies. That was really long. Might have to cut some of that, but yeah.
It's a mutual thing. I even think even on the competition side, there's times I called you and said, hey, do you have this product? I need to get it. There's times you've called me and we've shipped product back and forth, even being competitors to go forward. And it's a philosophy. I'm sure, I've done it with you. I've done it with probably 5 or 6 other competitors. And it's the overall shot is take care of the customer and get the client taken care of. And I believe in staying close to my competitors in any way, just so that we can help each other out in any way, shape, or form. And we've had many of times where we've talked and just been, hey, can you help me with this material or whatever? And I think it's a smart move, Sure, come get 10 rolls of carpet because your shipment's behind or whatever.
Well, absolutely. During COVID, there was stuff stuck out on the water. Sometimes you couldn't get your materials, I couldn't get my materials. At the end of the day, we had to deliver, right? For Invitation Homes or Tricon or whoever we were delivering that deadline on. So together, at that very first local chapter meeting, Dallas Tanner was on the stage, and that's what he called us to do. He called us to work together as vendors. That local chapter is a calling of the owner operators to come together and share best practices, not the secret sauce, but the standards. Because we do have standards in this space and we have false narrative out there implying that we don't have standards in this space. And so anyway, you or I or anyone in this industry, we all have a responsibility to amplify and communicate what these standards are. And it's to collaborate, to hit timelines, because ultimately the resident experience is impacted. So if I don't help you pull off a flooring job and a resident experience is impacted, that hurts us all when that ends up being a bad
It does.
Right. And so
Very true.
Now I will say my favorite part of that is I did not know Dallas, and I know he's a good friend of yours and you guys go back way, way, way back. And he goes, oh, you're Yovonne Kenny? And he fist bumped me. He said, keep giving more hell. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was so excited. But he didn't mean it in like some way. He's like, keep pushing this industry forward. Together, you guys are going to be great. Like he liked that. We were showing up for his residents. He liked that we were collaborating together. Yeah. So again, it's been a fun last decade. Let's talk about though, how did RMI begin and what's the story behind the name?
Story behind the name and how to begin. Well, Rick and I, we started off installing to get through school and then started running the company. And basically, we did high-end custom homes. We were mainly tile installers. So for 15 years, we were installing tile. It was Wagner Brothers Tile is what it was called. And then my wife got mad that I had a bunch of guys showing up every morning at 5:00 at our house to load up jobs. So she said, you get a warehouse and move from there. So we got a warehouse. Then we set up a showroom and we started what was called Red Mountain Interiors at first. As time went, the name changed. We had a third partner, got rid of him, and then said, well, we got to come up with another name. And we didn't think MR or Mr. Interiors would be proficient. So RM Interiors is how the name came to be, because it was Rick and Mark. We're very simple. As a matter of fact, the reason why I'm CEO is we flipped a coin, and that's basically what it was. It wasn't anything more so that's where it's at.
But now as the later, you're like, why did I want CEO? I didn't even want that.
You fall into it and you just start doing it. And then it's like, okay, let's go forward. But that's how the company came to be. That's our origin and where we went. And then I would say that how we got into the SFR, you didn't ask this, but I'll just throw it so we keep going around the origin today. The way we got into SFR and DRC, not BTR, but the way we got into it was, I think it's an interesting story. So a lot of the high-end custom builders we were working for, so in 2008, market sank and they were trying to figure it out. A couple of my friends, we were running, exercise in the morning, a couple of them were builders. As we were talking, one of them said, hey, I had shared that a client had come to me and bought a house at auction. And I went out and looked at it and I said, yeah, he paid like $40,000 for this house. So one of the other builders with me said, well, let's go look at the auction. He goes, I got to figure something out. I got nothing else going. So we went to the auction, downtown Phoenix in July. It's 120 outside, and it's literally on the courthouse steps, concrete everywhere. The heat, you can see the waves coming off the ground. It's not fun. Some 20-year-old kid comes out with a briefcase, opens up the thing, and starts selling houses. And at the time, it's probably 2010, there's like 6 guys there. That's all that was there. And he's buying houses. And so the builder that I was with, we decided to buy a house. So we buy a house sight unseen. We just said to a guy, how do we buy it? He says, what you do? And so we bought this house, drove out to it, and the floors were trash. And I thought, okay, I saw 200 houses get bought by 6 guys, and I couldn't have bought the oily home, but the floors were trash. Yeah. So I went back to my office and got my team and said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go get a cooler, fill it with everything that legally they can drink on the courthouse steps. I think whatever you need, fill it with, get some umbrellas and get some chairs. And I want you to get to know those 6 guys. And from those 6 guys, that's how Invitation Homes was found. Well, it was through those 6 guys. That's how we got that relationship going from there. It started with the 6 guys there buying, and then it connected us with Dallas and with the guy named Tom Stapley and Marcus. And from there, they were Treehouse Group back then. And then they worked a deal, and I'd say about 8 months in, we were a standard staple at the courthouse steps with drinks. And that's how we started that piece. And then Invitation, we just followed Invitation when I think the first fund they got was in the 3 billion range or something like that. And I remember talking to them and them saying, hey, we're going to buy some houses. Can you do our floors? And I said, yeah, no problem. So, and I had no idea what I was getting into, but we chased them across the country. So we started in Phoenix, then California, and then we ended up covering the whole Sun Belt from Seattle all the way down to Florida.
Wow.
So that's basically how we got into the industry and where we are today.
And so today you absolutely specialize in SFR BTR. You're one of the top known brands.
Oh, it's $1. You owe $1. You said BTR.
Oh,
DRC. Yeah, DRC. Okay.
Beat me. You don't get him already. See, you really are a competitor. Okay.
I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget.
One for Mark,
but yes,
for Yovonne. All right, we got this. All right. But you also do business in multifamily a little bit?
Yes.
And a little bit of commercial upfit.
What we found, Yovonne, is that the market took off in 2012, 13, 14. It was just chaotic. Open Door, OfferPad came into the play, Zillow came into the play, and we're going to diversify. You pick up Progress, American Homes for Rent, Tricon, whoever else is out there, Colony before they merged. So you're working to diversify your platform. Sure. And then what we found is as soon as interest rates peaked and they stopped buying, all of a sudden there was a 5-year span before you see the turn of that house again. So the turn, like in multifamily, the turn's closer to 2.5 years that you're going to see that property, maybe even quicker than that. It's my understanding. But in the SFR industry, it's 5 to 7 years before you see the home again. And so you got a 5-year play of, if they're not acquiring because interest rates went, that you're sitting idle and you need to keep your machine rolling. So we dove into multifamily. We dove into DRC, or basically the build to rent sector. which really hadn't taken off too much. Started working with builders there, but we just found that there's a lag. So there's a good solid business that you can continue to stay on, but you're without the proper amount of doors in a market. If any vendor wants to go expand and do this nationally, you've got to have, if you only have one client, they need to have at least 8 to 10,000 doors in that market, or you're not going to be able to survive and keep your doors open. So you need to diversify all of them to go from there.
And you would have to be the only flooring vendor at that number. Yeah. So if we were sharing work, and then that's hard to get 100% of anyone's work, nor do you really want it 100% of everyone's work.
I love competition. I actually was talking to IH last week, and we were talking with their leadership, and I had shared with them briefly. I said, look, I would love to do all your work, but I also don't want to do all your work, mainly because I want you to have somebody else that I can compete against. It makes me better, and it makes me hopefully look better when I outperform. And that's the biggest thing I'm looking for.
So one of the things that you just touched on there, Mark, is volume. And the way that we operate in this flooring industry is our installer base, right? And so in order for us to get labor done for the price point and the quality is we need volume. We need to be able to keep these guys busy every day. And that is how we align quality, because if they're working for us every day and they're coming in, we can work with them to improve what our standards are. What's helpful a lot of times is, in Tampa, and I swear to you that did not happen on purpose. We were looking for real estate, right? And we ended up right next door, like literally one building, one office in between your building and our building. It works out in some sense. Killed my trash bill there for a little bit because they started using my dumpsters, but it works out because I'm like, son of a gun. But you know what makes sense is if they're working for you and you're setting the same standards as they're working for us and they're setting the standards, they go where the work is. That's just how it is. It's our obligation to keep them busy. And I know I took that very personal. If I didn't have enough work when I was early on getting started, I wanted to make sure Pablo had a job every day because Pablo is pulling off miracles for me. And I got to be able to make that phone call on Christmas Eve and be like, I know it's Christmas Eve, but we got to pull off the Christmas miracle. And that's an actual specific job I'm referencing. You do that based on the relationship. So sure, we have relationships with our customer base, the REITs and the owner operators, but our relationship with our installer base, that is probably one of the most valuable assets we have, second to our employees who are committed to hitting timelines, turning around these tight turn times, processing orders with clear communication and all the things that it takes to really service SFR. But getting that labor rate to where we need that labor rate, because you and I are out there writing contracts, for a year or at least for 90-day notice. And you and I both know we can't just go back and up the price. If RM's not up in the price, I can't up the price. So we've got to, it really is creating an economy among the top 4 or 5 flooring professionals in this space. So what sets you apart from an installer? Visibility is consistency of work, how you treat them, right?
Yeah.
Pay, quick pay, chargebacks, valuing them, speaking to them, hearing them out, creating an environment where they can be heard, but then having a team that's educated enough to have real business conversations with them, helping them become better business people. And we're essentially teaching them how to own a business. Because look, you and your brother started out as installers. Like you said a little bit ago, we didn't know what we were doing. We kept it very simple. It turned into RM because you're like, hey, we were flooring installers. David Stoffel at Preferred Floor and Tile. He was a flooring installer. He laid floors for years. He's got the scars and the rough looking hands to prove it. Flooring installers are really good at what they do. And a majority of the time, they don't know how to run a business. They don't know how to keep their costs down, So we have to walk them through things. I don't know how many times my team talked to flooring installers about busting a job. Like, buddy, you're already on site. You already got your tools out of the car. I know the painters are in your way. Make friends, stay there. It's going to cost you more money to pack up and bring this stuff back than it is to stay there. And you teach them business. You're not just trying to keep them on the job to get the job. You're teaching them how to run their business and how to make more money and be efficient. And that's what we do. That's ultimately our value to Invitation Homes, to Tricon Residential. We're managing the labor and educating them and then looking for the next generation of them, because let's face it, how many kids are coming out of college right now or high school right now going, I want to lay hardwood or LVP it.
Or more. There's more people are starting to do it because it's starting to happen. So that's the good thing, is that it's, more people are seeing it and wanting to do it more because it's, anyways, it's a better trend. I got a little.
They make great money. They are going to work hard. They are some of the hardest working people I know. Been to more invited to quinceañeras, and these installers become family, right? I know that I could call any of them right now and they come help me with anything, and they know I would support and help them in just about anything they were doing from a business standpoint or personally. Some of their kids I'm friends with, so I love that part of our business. I know you do too.
Yeah. Well, I actually just put in the math formula because, so I was reading in a book, couple different books all tied together. I think this is interesting. The one story was about FedEx. FedEx in 1982 made the statement that they would have next day delivery by 10:30 a.m. And it changed the way the world was, changed the way shipping was done, right? It used to be the Pony Express, and then it went to going U.S. Postal Service, and now you get deliveries, whatever. And it changed the way the world was, that you can get your delivery by next day, 10:30. Well, today, if I order something, I usually expect it within a couple hours to be at my doorstep. So the market was changing. I got thinking about that, how the market's changing, where things are going. And when we first started, you actually hit this earlier, and you said these acronyms: communication, quality, and timelines. That was the standard. That was you'll get your package in 4 to 5 days. And I remember telling our clients, you give me 5 days, I'll have that job installed. Well, Yvonne, if you told the client today you can get a job installed in 5 days, how long would you keep that client? Not very long. Not very long. So the standard is, I call you today and you should be able to install it tomorrow, maybe even today. Now, if they give you 5 days, great. Then okay, you'll put it on the books. But the standard changed. So CTQ, communication, timelines, quality, was what we started it with in 2012, 13, 14. We were saying this is what you need to be. And from that created us an opportunity to get the big R, which is relationship.
Yeah.
That was what the original mathematical equation. So C times T times Q equals R. Okay. That was the original standard that you had. If you had that, you could keep the job. The difference today is the bar gets moved. You have to then take your R and multiply it by ease of use, or EOU. And if you do that, the question then that I brought to my team was, what does EOU bring you? And so EOU will bring you retention. So if I'm easier to use and I have a relationship, I can bring retention. But it's retention, and I call it to the third power. So I told you this is a goofy mathematical equation.
I love it. I geek out on this kind of stuff.
Retention to the third power. There's 3 powers that you need to have. You need to retain your customers, you need to retain your employees, you need to retain your installers. If you don't retain those, you won't get anywhere within this site. And that's the new market. And then it boiled down to another thing that I read. There was a book I was reading, and it made a statement that men are that they might have joy. And a whole different book. This is more philosophy book.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at that, and I got thinking about it. Everything that I do, every employee that comes to work, every customer, the renters that are renting our homes and we're doing the flooring in or the showers in, the first thing they wake up to, they touch their feet is the floors. When they come in at night, their kids are crawling on the floors. The floors are a major play. And we have an effect on them. The experience that they get, everything is based upon joy. Why do you work? But why do you work? Why do I work? I don't work to make money, even though people think that that's why I'm working. It's like, well, I do. No, this isn't why I'm working. What I'm working for is to get money so that I can make it to my daughter's dance recital on time. So I can make it to my grandson's t-ball game that's at 2:00 in the afternoon. That's why I'm working. So I can be there. And that is minar that they might have joy. So if you continue down the formula, I got EOU, ease of use, all right, equals retention to the third power, which equals joy. And really what it boils down to is we need to spread joy. When you work with an employee in your office, are you bringing them joy, or do they go home and they kick the dog and make their husband sleep on the couch? I hope not. I hope that when they get home, they're like, you know what? I really enjoyed my work-life harmony, not balance. I enjoyed it. I loved it.
I like that.
That's my geek out on a formula thing, but that's been my big push.
I love this. Some of the beginning equations that we used were very, very similar. So we used to say give, give, give. And so it's about, giving before ever expect to receive, right? And then it was we used to say, it was Patrick used to have this saying, so fast their head spins. Like we wanted to wow them. So, if a super were to hit them up with like, hey, this isn't happening, or I need this, or hey, can you guys pull this off? So fast their head spins that they're like, whoa, like that was different. Like they needed to experience a difference when working with us so that next time they could depend on the fact, like, give it to Preferred, give it to Patrick, call Patrick, right? So very same philosophies. And I think when you have two vendors showing up with that philosophy, it's no surprise that becomes the standard. And so it's hard for a third vendor or a fourth vendor or fifth vendor to come in. Like we raised the bar, not to, pat ourselves out there. We said, what we did is we had teams that we sold a vision to buy into this because, when we got started, I had very small budgets. We have very small budgets anyway, because we're in the flooring business. So we had to get creative on like what didn't cost a lot of money, but provided a lot of value. And work ethic and turning things around and being diligent doesn't cost that much. It does if you hire the wrong people and that don't want to deliver on those same experiences. So retention of your employees, yeah. Also, if you're not vetting and sourcing the right installers to plug them into what we're doing, right? There's a certain type of installer. There's a certain type of mindset within our environment. The worst case scenarios when we would hire someone, and at the beginning, we weren't really good at setting expectation on what our environment looked like, right? And what it meant to service our customer. And it wasn't we were stealing their life or their joy. It was like, hey, we need to hire people that like really get excited about pulling off miracles some days. And like, instead of giving up, they get juiced up to figure it out. Like the hard problem. It's 6:00 on my way home, and Mr. Morgan calls out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm going to tell you, we're going to turn around and go back. And I need the employee. I don't have to train. Like that's wired in them. It was just how they operated. And so we had to get really good of finding like-minded people to want to be in our environment. And and that was on us. So if someone didn't work out, a lot of times it's because we didn't align well, and that was our fault. And so, you had, huh?
You didn't align because you didn't create the expectation? Is that what you're thinking?
Because we didn't create the expectation properly or explain or use examples or probe into. So when I say, hey, we're a real winning environment and, we're a results-based environment, what I mean by that and what someone else might mean by that may be two different things. And so as we were getting started, some of my team had no flooring experience. I didn't have any flooring experience when I got started in this.
Did you get the job? How'd you get the job then?
I was doing some consulting work for David. I was working with Daniel Ray on marketing.
Okay.
And I called David one day and I said, hey, I'm leaving. My employer at that time was called Reach Local. I was selling them some pay-per-click advertising. I'd helped build their website and I was generating leads. And at that time, they were a Carpet One dealer. So David had invested in the Carpet One program. He had put a showroom up. So I was just driving leads into the showroom. And we were recording the phone calls that came in. And then that turned into me giving some business coaching on how to field an inbound lead and take a phone call. Then CCA Global had come and said, hey, we want to put kiosks in malls. Will you test this? David said, hey, will you put together like a sales process? What would it look like in the mall? I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. I think cost per lead will be a lot more expensive in a mall. I think you can just keep dropping money into Google. It'll work a lot better for you. But we went down that path, I helped model like what getting it up in the kiosk, what follow-up would look like. So I worked with him on that. Anyway, fast forward, David and I became friends. I called him one day, said, hey, I'm leaving my employer. I got a 1-year non-compete, so I'll see you in a year. He's like, whoa. Actually, why don't you come? This is right before he was working to kick off the Service Pros installations arm of the business and kind of go after the Lowe's business. He had just lost the Home Depot contract to Romanoff Construction. He saw a vision with Lowe's. He's like, I want to go all in on this. You're going to be the backup plan. So come over here and run this flooring company. And I'm like, me? I don't know anything about flooring. He was like, no, but you know people, you know sales. Come over here and let's figure it out. And literally. So at that time, I think his mom, his sister, Daniel Ray, and maybe we had 2 other employees. That's it. And 3 years down the road, we got out of the Carpet One program because we couldn't get the pricing we needed with the rebate program, and you know how all that works. And we got laser focused on SFR BTR, multifamily production builder, and it's all history. And in March, I think we had 52 employees.
Wow, that's funny.
And we're nationwide. So we went from a little mom and pop in Charlotte, North Carolina, sub 1 million, to an 8-figure business in net nationwide. And so I'm excited to see this next chapter for them and how they grow and develop. It'll be exciting. It'll be exciting to watch. So it's a fun business. If someone had told me I was going to be in the flooring business, I would have been like, you're nuts. But it's almost like everyone in the flooring business says that. Isn't it true?
Yeah. I had no desire to be in, I've never had was it Pretty Woman, Richard Gere?
Yes.
I just like putting pieces together and building to go from there and doing that. I enjoy that. So if it could shovel and put behind a parade, I would do it as long as I can put the pieces together. So you get into it, and it's a lucrative business, and you can figure it out and go from there.
So one of the hardest parts of scaling a business is consistency, right? And trying to keep that consistency on your retention to the third power around retaining employees, around retaining your customers and installers, right? So consistency from market, and as you expand, What kind of advice can you give a vendor, not necessarily in the flooring space, but what's the key thing to keeping consistency across your organization as you start to scale and grow across the country?
Processes, procedures, and accountability.
Yeah.
So that's as simple as it goes. And we've failed at it in a lot of ways. And there's some things that we fail and we recognize it. It's like, okay, we need to adjust it. But holding everyone accountable to where they need to go would be my biggest thing. Process, procedures, and accountability. Holding them to those process and procedures. Once you can get them to stay with, all of us can stay in that realm, then things become smoother. Everyone knows what to expect. You can plug and play if you have a problem. Somebody in North Carolina leaves, you get somebody you can bring in from Texas and they can plug and play. They know exactly the system. They know where the carpet cutter should be. They know where the right material is. Everything's the same. That's the plug and play. So
yeah, you make it what we called Amazon easy, right? You talk about ease of use, Amazon easy, or, like how often we have to look at our businesses as we're scaling them. This is the most valuable tool I have in my hand every day, right? This is communication. This is my lifeline to every relationship I have. This thing will periodically get an update, and your businesses need those same updates. And sometimes those updates tweak and they're not great. And you're like, man, and you have this within your organization, right? You've got the ones that are like, man, I'm not doing the update until everyone else figures it out. And then you have your early adapters who are like, oh, I'm all about the update, right? So I've always used that analogy within the preferred environment of, decide who you're going to be within the organization, be the early adapter, be the lagger. We need both, right? In the industry, we need the ones who are just going to charge forward and not ask any questions. And then we need the ones who are like, hey, hang on before you go running through that door that's got flames behind it, right? You identify key groups of people within your team and their skill sets also, right? So through the development of processes, you start to realize also who on your team, where's their strengths and their weaknesses, and what are they really good at. You get the right people in the right seats doing the right things.
Exciting though that you went through that process to see it go from a smaller company to a national company. It's just so cool to see the idea of that concept, to see it grow and to go that way. It's fun. Yeah. I agree with you. It is fun. It's the growing piece.
And I think we're going to see a lot more vendors enter this industry, Mark. And you and I have talked about this with the Trade Partnership Committee, creating a standards in the industry. I know at one point there was a question of whether or not we were putting in some of the right products, and we're always above reproach. I was never going to skirt, getting a like kind product or going open line. I was never going to risk our relationships, our business, our ethics. These operators need partners like that. That's a big deal.
It's probably part of the reason why Preferred's been as successful as they have been. Mm-hmm. Integrity, I've always talked about integrity is workability. And it's the one thing you can give away freely, but it's very difficult to get back. Best word I can come up for integrity is workability. If you are your word, I know, like you said earlier, they know what to expect. And that becomes workability, which workability creates ease of use, which then creates retention, which creates joy.
I've been working with the shower systems in the DRC environment. I've been working with a handful of builders. There's a couple approaches to a fee builder. You've got your builders who have their specs, right? And they may have the quality LVP floating or glue down, right? So let's just say they've got the standard floating click floor. The product performs regardless of the color, the manufacturer, it doesn't matter. It's a performing product. They have the carpet. It's a performing, probably FHA, 25-ounce standard carpet. Same with sheet vinyl, same with tile, no matter what the product is. Very little do we talk product. We're all quoting the same stuff, and we know what performs in these homes and what they want. Every once in a while, you'll get a default that requires a little bit of a better product. But for the most part, we know what we're all putting in. We all know what we're buying it for. We all know what the turnkey price is within a nickel, right? It comes down to the deliverable. Are you going to be in business in a year from now, 5 years from now? to warranty that work, because most people would also ask at Preferred, what's your warranty? And I'm like, I mean, on paper, it's a year, but I mean, if we mess it up, we're going to fix it. That's all there is to it. So on a maintenance side, how many times have you guys received a ticket and it was your work and they were going to pay you for it, and there was no cross to say, oh, RM actually did this job? Because I know many a times we had jobs come inbound through the maintenance side, and I'm like, that's our work. You know, my teams they're going to go look up the ad. Rule 1 was look up the ads, right?
Yep.
Look up the address. That was our work. Oh, that's our transition. That popped up. That's still under warranty. Close ticket, move forward, dispatch, get that fixed. But I could have taken that XTE. And no one would have known the difference, but I would have, my team would have, and our entire stability and foundation of our business would be built on that. And I wasn't going to ever have that at Preferred Floor and Tile.
I think that's awesome. And I can't answer the question you asked is how often does that happen? I know it's happened. I don't know how much it's happened, but I do know that in our it goes back to integrity as far as where it goes. You know, be your word. If it's something there, you know that's a problem, then let's go fix it. We have one that we've been doing. I think we installed 500,000 square feet of tile that has been having some problems, and we're replacing every square footage.
Yep.
And it's not happy. It's not a good thing, but we're doing it. And to go from there, from the same general shop, because the tile and working with the manufacturer to see if they can cover some of the cost or whatever. But it's been an interesting play. So you can see it.
Well, I know what you're talking about. And one of the RTM directors, I will tell you, gave you guys accolades for that, right? Like, it sucks. But at the end of the day, the integrity behind that, and you guys standing behind that and working with the manufacturer, because ultimately it was a manufacturing issue. You'd let that understand. So, but you're standing behind it and you're going through it with them. You're not like, oh, not my problem, I'm out of here. But on paper, probably you.
It hurts. It hurts.
Yeah, it hurts real bad. Repair versus the replace conversation, right? So if I'm building an entire neighborhood of homes, I want to know what's in those homes, because later that pulled equation, whether I'm going to do a repair versus a replace, it's important for me to know what's in those homes. It's so important for me as a flooring vendor to know what's going in your homes, because when that portfolio comes in and now it's going into turns, working alongside of the owner operators to say, hey, what do I need to be inventorying versus going out and replacing entire rooms now, or going out and trying to get like kind, and you end up with mixed match floors all over the place. These are going to become more and more discussions that this industry is having, because can you carry 15 different SKUs? I don't know. I think we're looking at that right now in this industry. These are some topics on the hold side of things, when BTR is the biggest way they're acquiring homes versus scattered lot, and then really knowing what's in those homes. And we can drive efficiencies. So I think we're going to see a different shift. We're going to be challenged as a labor provider and flooring providers and shower systems. Same with plumbing fixtures. Like, those maintenance teams, during my interview with Colleen Yeager, they want to have their maintenance team show up and have a truck so they can minimize how many times they're going back into a resident occupied.
First time visit. First time.
How do they know what little widget they're bringing?
Your maintenance, repair, or replace. Everyone that goes out always wants to replace, because it's a bigger ticket. Go back down the road of that we're playing for the long play. You're not playing for the short play. You need to look at the house as if it's yours, and what would you do and what's the best move. And that's something you just need to continue to teach. First time completion and repair. We actually just launched in Vegas a vendor, or a guy, it's an employee, that we put a van together, and we put our clients that have residents and that do occupied work. He has their LVP, he has carpet, he has all of that stuff in his van, and he does our occupied work. And we're testing it to see what is the ROI on it after we do it, or what does it do with our relationship with our customer, Does it give us first time conclusion? And where's it go? If it works, which I believe it will, because that's a big push right now on maintenance. If it works, I think it'll help solidify a lot more of the stuff going. And even like working with a lesson and some of these other guys that are out there, some of the problems with that is you need to be app compliant. And with third party guys, they don't want to use the app. So you're always late on saying whether or not you completed the job. A bit of some stuff along that line, I think we can solve for some of those issues, which will give better data to a lesson to be able to give to somebody. When some of the other people that are out there, it's not second nature. Who's the other guy that does that? But
Property Meld.
Property Meld's one. Yeah,
And 2 episodes ago, Guillermo Salazar. So right now, I know a couple of the owner operators are looking into his system, basically a triage software. And what happens, majority of the time, they're skipping triage, right? How many out? And it wasn't flooring at all. It was subflooring. Is costing millions of dollars a year. And so that's one of the biggest discussion points is triage. And a majority of the time, triage step is getting skipped and it's going straight to dispatch. I was like, I know you're selling this as a tack on to the maintenance teams, but from a flooring vendor perspective, this is a game changer. It comes through the lesson portal. You accept the job. You reach out to the resident. You could dispatch them a link. They click on it, and now they can show me what's happening. If your guy could show up a little more prepared with what they might need, it could move the needle.
I could get away from showing up to jobs that I can't do anything. Every time my guy shows up to the house, it's basically $70. That's what, drive time, car, everything, it's $70. So can I throw out $70 if I could skip it and just look at it and say, hey, you're going to need a subfloor. I save myself $70, which I'm not making it, but I'm not losing it. And the end result is those are my bottom line. So
we've been dispatched and it's like, oh, our flooring is wet. Well, you go out there and there's an inch of water and you're like, okay, well, dispatch extraction. Like if you can help, like the water should have been extracted. Yes, you're going to need new floors, but water's always something that if it's not mitigated quickly, then that ticket exponentially grows because now more damage happens the longer it sits there wet. The owner operator doesn't want that happening. Nobody wants that happen. The resident doesn't want it happening. We don't want it happening. It's something that I'm like, I would have implemented this immediately. This is
at IH's summit. They just talked to Eric Wu is the founder of Open Door. And he's starting something along that line that's basically used with the same general concept. So I've actually got a call with him next week to go over what he's doing just to see what it is. So same concept. We'll love to look at it, see what's up.
Yeah.
It's going to change the way we're doing things and it should make it better. Hopefully it'll help train people also. It'll be a training program.
Let's talk a little bit about how have you and Rick balanced ownership and family roles? Cooper and Bennett are stepping into some leadership roles. And I know you've said, I'm just trying to stay out of their way right now. These younger mindsets coming up are really impacting your business. So what qualities are making you proud within your organization, within the family dynamic, within?
My brother Rick has got to be the best partner you could ever have. He is a doer. If I were to throw it out, I'm more of a visionary. I think big scale. I'm all over the place. I'm ADD, whatever you want to call it, but I'm constantly thinking of different concepts, different ideas. And Rick is a doer. And so what's happened with us as a partnership, if you want something done, that's the guy to get it done. And that's what I love about him. He gets it done. He also lets me do crazy ideas and concepts. And he's like, okay, fine, let's go. Now to just a little toot my own horn, I've been very successful at some of my crazy ideas. So it's worked out. But as far as where it goes partnership, what we concluded a long time ago, anything with two heads is a beast. So we dubbed, okay, he runs the real estate side of our business, which is a complete different entity. But he runs that business. I run this business and we counsel with each other. We meet at least once a week for us just to sit down and say, okay, here's my problems. Here's what I see, or here's what I'm doing. What do you see? And we both go back and forth. We talk pretty much every day about what's going on. That dynamic has worked out very well. If you, like I said, there's always that person that gets stuff done. Matter of fact, if I were to, the way Rick and I work, this is a story I've shared often. If someone came to us and said, I want you to dig a hole, okay, Rick would have a shovel and he would be digging within 30 seconds. I would stop and go, okay, well, why are we digging a hole? And who else wants to have a hole dug? And then I would go to 5 other houses and I'd sell 5 other holes. And then I'd go get a backhoe and I'd get someone to come in and dig it. At the end, when we were done, Rick would have the hole dug and I would have the hole dug. We'd make the same amount of money. But what it really works well is when Rick and I work together, because now I could say, Rick, don't start digging the hole, go get a backhoe. And you start digging the hole with that. We can dig 10 holes together. Apart, we dig 5 holes, 6 holes, and we both make the same amount of money. But we can really make some money and really do well when you have that person that's in the integrator of what your visions are. And that's where he fits. And that's where I fit as the visionary. So, but that's basically the way the role's gone. With my boys came in and they are natural sales, natural people, relationship people, and they have done a phenomenal job of taking over. So both Rick and I see it as, okay, let's let them run it. Let's mentor them, teach them. And they are the future of what RM will be.
You have other key leaders within your organization as well, like Cole. He's a rising star. Love, this really speaks to the legacy I think you and your brother are creating.
Well, Cole's actually, he's over marketing. He's director of business development. Well, Cole's one of Cooper's really good friends, came in and he's a great guy. There's speaking of legacy, and I'll just throw it out. I was talking to a friend of mine that made a comment that his grandpa was just a absolute stud, and that when he passes his legacy, he wants his grandkids to say that he's a stud. And I thought that was a phenomenal legacy to create. And I got thinking about it, and I'm not in any way shooting to one up this gentleman's comments because I admire him and think it's great. But I got thinking about what legacy I wanted to leave. And my legacy is not that I want my grandkids to think I'm amazing or that I'm a stud. What I want is I want my grandkids to think that their parents are studs. And if I can create the legacy and mentor my kids and mentor them so that they'll do the same to their kids, then we don't get the 3rd generational wealth going to crap. And you could teach that legacy. And I'd much rather know when we're done that my kids know what they're doing and can go do it. And to go that way. And even on top of that, the people closest to me. One of my goals is to help 10 people become millionaires. And it's been a gold mine for a while, and I'm almost done. So, but it's
well, if you're looking for an 11th, I'm right here.
To mentor to go that way. And you know what, as far as if there's any mentorship that goes that way, how many people have helped me and to go that way? And I think it's if you give, you get back more than you ever could imagine. Your comment about give. If you do that, you will get. It's a lot more. And you won't even recognize it because you'll keep giving. So it's a great piece of advice.
Give is something I live by today. So on that subject, you're like, you said, man, so many people helped me. Who are some key people that helped you that you point to and say, man, this person really helped me and they gave to me?
Well, my brother being one, just with where it goes. He was the boss when we started, and he's always been there for me. My original boss that Rick and I worked with, the guy's name is Roy Turnbull, and when I worked for him, I couldn't stand him. But he was molding me. I was young, 17, 18, 19 years old, and he was molding and creating, taught me how to work. I've called him, told him I loved him, told him that, hey, you, I know I didn't get along with you when I was there, but man, I appreciate what you did now. And there's time there's time and place for that. In our office here, we actually have a life coach that is on staff for all our employees, and anybody that wants to use him to kind of go from there. And he's been a mentor to me for the last 7 years. And then I've also got another coach that I work with that has, make a big difference. Going out and taking time. I know it seems funny and you hear all these things about coaches and people to do that stuff. I actually have, I believe it's huge to have somebody that you can turn to that's got some experience and you can turn and ask questions to, and use your network, as many people as you can, to go from there. So that would be my friends, my close association, the network of people, and then those people in my life have been big. I would also say that my wife keeps me in line. It's the last one.
Well, I think people that love and care about you, that doesn't always look easy, right? You mentioned the one guy was hard on you. So that's how you know someone cares about you sometimes, is they're not always going to give you the truth. I'm a big believer that coaches need coaches and their coaches need coaches. And one thing that Daniel Ray used to always say is, hey, who's pouring into you? You're pouring into everybody. Who's pouring into you? And so, that's when he would do a temperature check. Hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? And I had a business coach. I still have a business coach, Harvey Smith. I owe him a lot to who I am today and the core principles of the, basic stuff that he's taught me. David Stoffel would pour into me. He used to say, hot air goes up, right? Don't let it go down. And just kind of protecting the environment, because as a leader and as you're growing and you guys made all these mistakes over the years, you didn't get here making no mistakes. You got here making a tremendous amount of mistakes, personally, professionally, all the things above. And that's called experience and wisdom. And I appreciate you coming on this show today. It's been my pleasure, because I think you're an OG in this industry, which means original gangster. But you're one of the people that really got this industry going, Mark. And I thank you for your years of mentorship and for raising the standards of what it means to be a true partner in this industry. And from building RMI with your brother Rick to co-founding the NRHC Phoenix local chapter, co-chairing the National Trade Partnership Committee, you've shown that when vendors and operators work together, the entire industry wins. So you've proven that it's not the product conversations that build trust. It's not this conversation that builds trust. It's sharing of this knowledge. And that's what we're doing today. Consistency, communication, collaboration. Thank you. And so for the audience, if they want to learn more about RM Interiors, what do they got to do to learn more about your services?
I think first of all, I should watch this again, but if they want to learn more about it, they can go to rmiflooring.com and they can pick it up to kind of go from there and learn more about us, or just reach out to us, shoot us an email there, and we'll reach back out.
Sure. And of course, if you guys are interested, reach out to me. I know how to get connected. Bennett is also on LinkedIn, very active, and so is Cooper. So they're following in your footsteps and playing an active role in this space, bigger than just flooring and bigger than all of us. So thank you for tuning in to Inside the Vendor Network. I am your host, Yovonne Kenny. Let's keep this conversation going inside the vendor network in our private group. If you have any questions additional for Mark, his team, go into the local private group, post a question. If you disagree. We love when people disagree, because that's when we learn. But thank you, and keep tuning in, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Elsa.
Mark.